Attorney Jonathan Elson, reminding you that if you've been injured in an auto accident, it's important to have somebody on your side. When you need a lawyer,
you need Nelson.
Just after lunch hour, we were dispatched a report of a structure fire. While we were responding, we were receiving reports that there was people that may have re-entered the residence in an attempt to get animals out of the structure. So in turn, we turned it into a rescue assignment, adding additional resources and going under the mindset that as soon as we arrived on location, we were going to commence a quick attack on the open fire and then send people inside to see if there was anyone actually trapped within the structure itself.
There was some high heat, high flames at this point.
There was. Upon our arrival, we had heavy fire showing, and it was windswept, and it was extending rapidly. As I mentioned earlier, we commenced a quick exterior knockdown on the fire as crews went in through the front door. They encountered high heat, heavy fire conditions, sagging floors, and dark smoke that was almost down to floor level. So it was also in some areas an overabundance of personal property, so it added to the challenges for the firefighters to get through the structure in a very quick manner to see if there were any occupants that were trapped. In the end, after the primary and secondary searches were completed, there was no one. It was an unoccupied structure at the time of the fire.
You got that information from a neighbor?
That was actually the confirmation. There were several bystanders staying outside thinking that there were people, that they had observed someone going in, and it's uncertain whether anyone actually did go in, but the end-all result is that there was no one trapped within the structure.
So the residents were actually going on vacation, right?
Yeah, it's our understanding one of the occupants of the property arrived much later in the fire and informed us that, in fact, the family had left about an hour and a half prior to the discovery of the fire, and they were on their way to California.
Let's talk about entering a structure to save animals.
Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up. And there is absolutely very little cases that you should ever re-enter a structure. And the only thing that we can really think of, if you have a clear line of sight of someone who's trapped and you can get there without compromising yourself and pull the person to safety, that's one thing. Anything beyond that, don't re-enter it, because you don't have the training, you don't have the equipment, and you're just adding to the load as far as what could possibly happen.
We've had people, unfortunately, in our area who've passed away by re-entering the structure for their animals. We've even had times that we've had a fire put out and we found an animal and were able to save them.
Yeah, absolutely. Give us the information, but don't re-enter the structure. Allow us to do our job. We're trained. We practice this all the time. We have the proper equipment. We have the techniques that were in hand. You know, many people don't realize that there's a lot of communications that are ongoing, you know, while the apparatus is on the route to the call. We talk to each other, so we have a really good idea what the game plan is. When someone does something on their own, that disrupts our game plan.
And it also puts firefighters at risk, doesn't it?
Absolutely, and that was the case yesterday. We had a lot of people in that structure. It was unsound to begin with. It was an older structure, so it was a single wide with additions. So there was a lot of, you know, the variables with this particular type of fire. And again, we had heavy fire and windswept conditions.